Hey guys, welcome back. It's another episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and I'm joined with my co-hosts, Zack and Emmett. We're here with another roster breakdown today. Offensive line group is on deck for this one. Going to break down the roster, let you know who's on the team, kind of give some thoughts on the room, and then some possible projection starters. We are 4 or 5 days away from game day. We're recording this Monday, August 25th. Friday night is the home opener against Western, so we have that game coming up. So we're excited for football season to get going. Excited for these roster breakdowns. We'll have this in the defensive backs to wrap up, and then that covers the whole roster. So we're getting close to the start of the season. So guys, thanks for joining me. I'll jump right into who's on the team, and then we'll break it down. So starting with the offensive lineman, we have Antonio Johnson from Detroit, Matt Golbin from Connecticut, Cooper Terpstra from Michigan, Holland, Michigan, Raheem Johnson from Idaho, Cole Dellinger from Michigan, Connor Moore from Millbury, Ohio, the transfer who came in through the portal, Justin Bell from Michigan, Peyton Stewart from Washington State, Stanton Ramil from New York, Ashton Lepo from Michigan, Rashawn Rogers from Michigan, Luka Vincic from Washington, Christian Big Dooley Phillips from Georgia, Caleb Carter from North Carolina, Rustin Young from Hawaii, Gavin Brocious from Arizona, Charlton Luneski from Ohio, Drew Nichols from California, Andrew Dennis, former hockey player, coming from Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and then Carlton's brother Mercer Luneski from Cincinnati, Ohio as well. So deep room, lots of potential, I guess, in the room. Good mix of young and experienced guys, but I think the younger half of the room has a lot of talent, a lot of development potential, not only for this year, but for the coming years. And then I think we're going to see a pretty good starting five too. Once the game time rolls out. I know Jonathan Smith has talked about rolling more than five. We always do. Even when we're not injured, we're going to have offensive linemen rotating in for giving a breather on different positions. So you'll see more than five start. But I think overall the depth in this room is going to be a lot better than last year. Hopefully we don't have injuries to deal with, but if we do, I think the floor has been raised a little bit, and hopefully we don't have to deal with as much of that. So that's my little quick two pieces. Obviously, Emmett will break it down a little bit more, so I'll throw it over to him.
Yeah, guys. Looking at this roster, the big thing that stands out is I would say returning experience, because overall this year is a team. They have, I want to say, 19 or 20 players who were practicing at a D1 level last season. Last year that situation was there were 9 players that had practiced or played at a D1 or FCS level heading into the year. Another thing that stands out, a lot of these players, you're going to see them back for another season, assuming they don't hit the portal. Besides transfers, Caleb Carter and Matt Golbin, every single player in this room is a redshirt junior or lower in eligibility. So this is going to be a group that, no matter how the season goes, they will be getting a lot of experience and they'll be ready for the 2026 season. But obviously, looking at 2025, let's go through some of the names. Matt Golbin, he's your surefire starting center one, whatever you want to call him. He replaces Tanner Miller. Golbin was one of the best, both pass blocking offensive linemen and run blocking guards. He is a player who it's going to be hard to replace Luke Newman, who went off to the NFL as an interior offensive lineman. Golbin had better grades than Newman at the same spot. Hopefully that move to center won't be too much, and you're going to see him being probably your surefire center one. If they don't elect to bump him to guard, say injuries take a toll. Knocking on wood right now. Then other players in that center room, you have Cooper Terpstra. He played, I believe, 10 games last year. And anytime Tanner Miller wasn't on the field late in blowout wins, blowout losses, Cooper Terpstra was your guy snapping the ball. The other guys in the center room, you do have Andrew Dennis and who else? Andrew Dennis and they
Cole
have mentioned
Dellinger.
Raheem Johnson being a player that has started hiking the ball. Johnson is a guy, I see him as more of he is going to be the glue guy. Any interior offensive line or tackle, he got to start at tackle last year against Ohio State. Raheem Johnson, any spot you need him, he's going to be there. He is going to be one of those players who, he is offensive lineman, 6'7" on the board, just because he's that guy who can play any spot, come off the bench. I don't necessarily think he starts as a redshirt freshman, but I don't think he's going to be held on the bench. Cole Dellinger is finally healthy. Your guard room, I would say your top 4 guards to be looking at the left guard spot, your 2 guards to look at are Christian Phillips and Gavin Brocious. Both of them had their season end by week 3 last year, so there is a little bit of an unknown there on injury status. Both were fully practicing as of the start of fall camp, so that's always something good to see. I do think Christian Phillips has the edge here just because he beat out Gavin Brocious last year. Brocious only started 1.5 games in absence of Phillips, so there's not a lot more game experience to be had for Brocious. So I think I would give the nod to Christian Phillips right now. Then that right guard spot, you will be seeing, in my opinion, Luka Binkic will be the first guy playing. He'll be your starting right guard. And then the guy behind him is Caleb Carter, the transfer from Western Carolina. Tackle room, I would say there's really 3 big names to know for that tackle room. You're going to know left tackle Stanton Ramil. Everyone's saying that he has taken that next step. He is a monster this year. He's nasty. First career start against Boston College last year. Little bit of a concern. He got put on skates by Donovan Ezeraiku, who's now with the Cowboys. This year, he's learned from it. He said, at best, my performance was mediocre. I'm going to be better this year. Your right tackle is likely going to be Connor Moore, the transfer from Montana State. He is a guy that appeared in that FCS championship. Unfortunately, his worst game of his early career was that FCS championship. That said, that jump up to the competition might be a little much, but at the same time, he does have Ashton Lepo, the full-time starter from last year, behind him. I'm giving the nod to Moore here just because Lepo missed spring camp and spring camp and then a little bit of workouts with an undisclosed injury. So overall, you just have a player that he lost some reps to Connor Moore, who's coming in experienced from the portal. I think Moore may have beat him out for the spot, and I would give the starting nod to him, just from what I've heard, what I've seen, and heard from the coaches. Then in that tackle room, you also have Rustin Young, played sparingly against Ohio State last year. Then Carlton Wineski did make his debut for about 9 snaps last year. AJ Dennis played guard primarily, as I mentioned. Then Mercer Wineski and Peyton Stewart both redshirted last year, looking to make their debut. And then the other guys in the room, walk-ons and freshmen. It is hard to see a freshman get a lot of playing time in the Big Ten because it's the Big Ten. Even your 4-star offensive linemen traditionally end up playing a maximum of 4 games to preserve their redshirt because the biggest year of development for these guys is between their first and second years on campus. So players like Rashawn Rogers, Drew Nichols, Justin Bell, and Antonio Johnson are all guys you might see them for a snap or 2 if the Youngstown State or Western Michigan game hopefully get out of hand. But beyond that, you don't have big expectations for them because you expect that leap to come in year 2. That said, Justin Bell is a name that jumps out to me. Early enrollee, he has Big Ten size. He's 6'6", 311 as a true freshman about to compete in his first game. That's Big Ten size. That excites me. Rashawn Rogers, 6'6", 335 also. Huge size. I believe he's tied for the heaviest player on team with Ben Roberts. So overall, to reiterate, my starting 5, left tackle Ramil, left guard Phillips, center Golban, right guard will be Vinkic, right tackle is going to be Connor Moore in my opinion. Zach, I'll pass it over to you. I've yapped a lot about the offensive line, my bad.
Yeah, no, you're completely good. And I do agree with the starting offensive line that you have. I think that will be the starting offensive line. And I think with the offensive line as a whole, if we really want to kind of get into just the potential of this team, it is really the starting offensive line. And I think that's where a lot of this kind of hope comes from. Obviously, we've talked about the wide receiver room, how there's excitement there. But I think really the next biggest step and the next group that really needs to take that is the offensive line. And I think if you really want to try to take one positive thing out of last year, you don't necessarily think of injuries as a positive thing. It's not, obviously. But if you look at it through a bigger picture for this year, for next year, what happened is last year, a lot of these young guys were forced to play. And obviously, because of that, the offensive line outside of the Iowa game, which I still think is, I really want to know exactly what happened, where that offensive line really went. I don't know if we'll ever get that true answer to that question. But what happened, exactly what happened is you force these young guys, to play a lot of snaps. And there's no better experience than game experience. And unfortunately, some of these guys probably played a year ahead of time because of injuries. But what that does is that sets it up for them to take that jump going into this year, going into next year. And when you add in the transfers that MSU had got with a Connor Moore, with a Vintage, with the injury, with the players that get injured that's coming back that were out all of last year, like a Big Dooley, Gavin Brocious, you're adding that potential and you're adding another year of development under coach, which we all understand and we all, I think, agreed that was probably one of the biggest hires that Coach Smith made. There was a bunch of praise about him of how he's one of the greatest offensive coaches in the country for an offensive line. So when you have these guys and the potential that they can be to kind of get back to the Michigan State of old, to get back to what Jonathan Smith wants to do in running the ball, I think that's one big reason, and the depth that this team has is a big reason why there's hope here. And I think this offensive line, if they stay healthy, should be good. Now, here's the question of how good are they going to be? I don't think we necessarily know the answer to that. I think we're going to see what Connor Moore can do. We're going to see what Binkett can do. There's still some question marks of how good it can be. But I think if you look on paper, it's an offensive line that's going to be better because of what happened last year. It's an offensive line that's going to be probably one of the better ones we've had, which I think, again, is where the hope comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, the biggest X factor of this offensive line, what's going to sink or swim this, injuries, obviously. But if I want to isolate a player, to me, it's Connor Moore. There was a reason he was recognized as one of the top transfer targets in the portal of anybody. I think 24/7 had him ranked as like the 10th or 11th best tackle in the portal going into the offseason. He's extremely talented. He is one of those players that I think if the competition isn't too big of a leap coming from Montana State, then if he slides right in and solidifies the right tackle position, this offensive line can be truly more efficient and better than last year. Both Christian Phillips and Gavin Brocious returning, I think, will help the depth. Obviously, one of them is going to start. I also agree it's probably going to be Christian Phillips. But even having that backup guard who can come in and give, even if no injuries, give a break to Christian Phillips and give him some rest. Same with Luka Vinkic. Same if need Matt Goldman to take a break and have a backup center come in or slide Vinkic over to center for a rep or two, whatever. It gives you options to not only prevent some wear and tear on your starting five, but not lose a step or two when you have to do that. And then Raheem Johnson, Stanton Ramil, those guys, they're, again, same thing. Some of the versatility of this offensive line kind of reminds me of how the Lions seem to run things in the pro game. Same with the Eagles. They have their starting five, and we will have our starting five that they like to use. But having a sixth and seventh guy to rotate in, maybe even bring in on jumbo packages, do whatever you need to do, it helps a lot. It helps take wear and tear off. It helps prevent injuries. If an injury does happen, you don't have to take such a huge step back and put a big learning curve in. So I think that's big. And then looking at some of the younger guys, I think AJ Dennis is going to be a big part of this offensive line in the future. The Luneski twins, I think, could have some impact in the future as well. I really liked Cole Dellinger coming out of high school. I know he's had some injury problems, but that could be a piece if he gets fully healthy. Same with Rustin Young. There's a lot of players I've liked in the recruiting classes the past few years that I think will eventually translate, maybe not necessarily again this year, but in the future after learning from Coach M for a year or two. Keep in mind, there's some leaders in there too, like AJ Dennis. Initially was full go committed, was coming down from Mount Pleasant High School every weekend to help recruit. Obviously the coaching changed, some stuff happens. He had to go to Illinois. I don't blame him for that necessarily with all the turmoil and everything that was happening here. But he realized, once everything got stabilized, East Lansing's his home. He wanted to come back, and he's back in full bore with it. So guys like that can really pay dividends in the room. And like I said at the beginning, you have these talented players with depth. It brings the floor up at the bare minimum, and I think that's huge, especially if you have to scramble with injuries and stuff. So praying for health, of course, but if we do need to fill in some guys with injuries for snaps, I think we are better suited to do that than last year. So
I agree.
we'll see how that translates, of course. But that's kind of where we're at with the offensive line. I agree on the starting five, and I think it's just going to be exciting potential. And I can't wait to see it translate on Friday night and into the first few games. So, anything else you guys wanted to add before we sign off on this one?
Nope.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's the offensive line room in a nutshell from us. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. Any other questions, comments, concerns, of course, let us know like always. We'll be back with the DB room breakdown to wrap up the roster. And then, of course, we got a couple of great guest interviews coming up this week to get you geared up for football. So we're excited. We appreciate everybody. And like always, have a good night and go green.
Go away.